Bon, on s'entend encore, on peut parler, non? Pendant que personne n'est là. We can still talk, I guess. Hein?
C'est juste en
And we
train
can hear you
d'être
too.
enregistré.
Okay. There's one point about politics, which is, I think it's complicated. I think most of my clients and friends are Democrats, and we follow that very closely and are very happy. But on the other, on another way, I don't think as French people we should connect with your politics the same way as how would we take it if American would tell us how it should be run in France? I'm really trying to be very careful even on social media on that because I'm French, because I don't vote, because it's not my country. Even if I think a lot about it, I have ideas and I have friends and I share their ideas, but I don't think I should interfere into an election where I don't live. It's not my country.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
We're going to talk about wine, which I love. And, you know, a lot of people love, I think, you know, seeing so many of French winemakers in America as well, just especially in Oregon, because when I mentioned this on my social media, people just were really excited about it. And I think it's great because even if you are new to wine or just getting into Pinot Noir, everyone considers Oregon in the United States and also France as the place for Pinot Noir. So I think it's going to be a great conversation.
And with that, I think we have just about...
You guys are pros. You've done this before.
I think we have just about everybody with us. So I'm going to go ahead and start our video and we'll get started.
Okay.
Whoops. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Coney. I am a wine journalist based in Washington, D.C. and Houston, Texas. So I am here for the IPNC, which I can't wait to go back to Oregon and have great time at IPNC. But I am here and we are here with these amazing French winemakers who actually are making wine in Oregon. They've been making wine for a while in Oregon, and I'm just so honored to actually be, hosting this panel because I love Oregon and I love every person's wine. I'm just really thankful that I live in a time I get to enjoy your wines, both from Oregon and abroad, which is great. And so we're actually going to have a conversation just about their wines, their history of coming to, the US to make wines, and particularly why Oregon. And so to kick it off, we are starting with Dominique Lafont. And yes. I'm sorry you were taking a sip.
It's okay. I'll finish my glass and I'm ready to talk.
Okay, you're ready to talk. So when did you first come to Oregon and realize you wanted to make wine in Oregon?
Okay, the first time I visited Oregon was quite long ago because you get the old guy out of the back first. Huh? So I'm going to tell you long old stories. Then you'll talk to younger people. So anyway, I was an intern in California in '81, and by chance I get to visit Oregon in '81 and meet producers and taste the wines. And that time it was kind of special. I'm not really ready for that. Then to be quick, my first job after that was working with Becky Wasserman as buying wines and selling wines. And we also had the agency for François Fair-Barons. So one of my jobs was to contact people West Coast and talk to them about the barrels. And this is how I get a very strong connection with the old guys, Adesheim, Ponzi, and all those guys visited Burgundy at that time first and came to see us, and then we went to visit Oregon with them and tasting the wines together. I think the first thing I enjoyed about Oregon was the ambience. If you want to do a project outside your country and in the US, and if you compare how it's organized in California and how it's organized in Oregon, I like the ambience. To me, it looked more like smaller places with a very strong human side to it, and people who are real farmers, and that's how the pioneers have been. Then invited first IPNC back in '87. I think I behaved because they re-invited me in '88. I was talking to my mother. She said we went in Oregon in '96 to do the IPNC. And then back and forth and getting to know all those people. Second thing, I think, to me, once you get to know Oregon, it's the climate, which is amazing. I mean, we are in a cool climate area if you compare with other places, and I think that's what we know how to deal with here in Burgundy. It's you have the potential to have the same type of balance in your wines when you deal in Oregon or in Burgundy. Well, then you get to taste the results. I remember having a huge vertical tasting of DDO, which amazed me even by how the wines age well. I've been offered in 2007 to take a job as a consultant for Seven Springs. And then I met this amazing vineyard, honestly, with the very old vine, historical vineyards. And we started making a really nice one there. I worked with them until 2014, when I moved with Larry Stone. So I'm now a consultant and a partner also at Lingua Franca, which started in 2015 and is still going happily. But my job here, compared to other people, I'm more of a consultant. Alexandre, maybe you're doing the same. You're closer to what I do, but I think you're more involved also. I'm really a consultant, but I don't consult with anyone else. It's the only consultant I do, and I wouldn't do it in other places of the world. I like Oregon. Now I get, after 14 vintages, I get to know a little bit about how it's going. I think the potential of quality and the quality of wine we produce is just amazing. It's interesting also to see the ways of quality and to see also how strongly Oregon is finding its real identity for the style of wine. And it's also great. I'll finish with that. To come across my friends from Burgundy from time to time. Sometimes we smile and say, "Hey, we see more of us when we're in Oregon than when we are in Burgundy." Of course, we have very close relationship all together in Burgundy also, and I think it's good that we have that community of Burgundian producers in Oregon.
I think that's great. It seems when I first went to Oregon, it was very community focused, where a lot of the winemakers actually helped each other. And they not only as friends, but just if they were having problems with maybe something in the vineyard, they would always ask another fellow winemaker who could help them and assist in a way that's not prevalent in a lot of other wine regions. So thank you, Dominique, for that. Veronique, you have been in Oregon quite a while, like a pioneer in the Oregon wine, to put Oregon wine on the map for people to drink it. So can you tell us your experience coming from France to Oregon?
Yes, well, actually, the story of our family with Oregon started before me, because my father had been in Oregon in 1961, where no wine is being produced, but he always tells me that when he went there, the reason of his visit was to sell his wines from Burgundy, because already in Oregon people loved drinking, I guess, Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and good wines. But he said, I was surprised to see how similar the valley, the shape of the region was to Burgundy, to the Côte d'Or. But that's it. And then a couple of years later, there was a tasting where David led 1975 South Block Irie Pinot, did very well at the Paris tasting. And he was a little bit surprised with that tasting. And he reorganized a tasting in France with his wines, and the best wines, the Pinot Noir, that did very well. And the wine from David came number 10, I think, in that tasting. So I think it came actually number 2 at the second tasting. So anyway, he said there's not just luck, there's something very special about Oregon. So when I studied enology, you have to do some training, you have to do a little bit of stage, and that's how you learn the most. So I had the chance to go to Bordeaux the first time. And then after that, as we all like to do, and I know Dominique has been doing that a lot, we like to travel, and I wanted to explore a little bit the new world. And of course, I was thinking about going to California, because I had no idea Oregon was already making wine. But my father said, well, you should go to Oregon. So I asked him, why would I go there? And he said, I've been trying Cabernet Pinot on my visits, recent visits there. That was stunning. So here I am in 1986, very young, no experience, but I'm absolutely incredibly welcomed by 3 wonderful families. They were the pioneers. So the Lett family from Irie, the Adelsheim family from Adelsheim Vineyards, and the Castillo from Beverly Heights. And I spent 4 months of the vintage 1986. And we became friends, and I really loved my time with them. And I think it's their idea, kind of suggesting to our family, to my father, why don't you try to make wine here? And my father, I remember, he said, I would love to, because I believe into this place, but I won't have the time to make wine Burgundy in Oregon. And that's why in 87, when with Dominique, we went for the first IPNC, there was this beautiful piece of land for sale, and David Adelsheim took my father there and he said, Robert, look at this. Maybe you could reconsider. And that's when my dad said, Vero, if you're willing to be the winemaker, of course we will help you, because I was so young and had very little experience. But I think we should try, because I really believe into Oregon. And so from there, the thing went quickly, because we bought the land that had no vineyards, we had no winery, and we had no equipment, which was very hard to find there.
I think you froze for a minute, Veronique.
Sorry?
You froze for a minute. Your screen, you froze. The connection.
Am I back?
You're back, but your face isn't moving. But go ahead, it's okay.
Sorry about that. I don't know what to do for.
It's not you. It's just the wire, the connection. Oh.
Sorry.
We can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so sorry. I'm living in a very small town, not in Bonn, so I think the connection in my little town is not very good. So I apologize. Okay. So anyway, then from 1988, which is the first vintage, so we bought grapes, because that has been I think the fascinating journey for us over all these years, because this year was 33rd harvest for us at DDO. And when you come to a new place, what is fascinating, and we come from Burgundy, is to learn about the place, about the soil. And I think the genius of the people who started that, plus the genius of the terroir, and as Dominique said, the climate, because the reason my dad believed into Oregon was because of the wine he tried, but he said the climate is very good for Pinot. And so that has been the slow learning process, but still in 30 years, we've been learning about there are different regions, and now we have the AVAs. And the beauty is nailing down even more to eventually someday have our Burgundy or Appellation, and that will take a long time. but really rewarding to see that the wines are good, consistent, they age well, and that so many people have also believed into Oregon, and including my friends. So I'm thrilled that now there's a lot of course, US people making wine, but also from Burgundy, people are interested. And Jean Nicolas has been maybe the latest one to arrive, and I know he's very excited about it. So
Very well. Thank you so much, Veronique. Alexandrine,
Yes.
when did you arrive? When did you arrive in Oregon? I'm all about dates. I love dates, so that's why I've always asked people, because I want to know, like you know, Veronique says is 33 harvests in, and when did you start your first harvest in Oregon?
Well, I got a different story, of course, of the others. I'm one of the new folks into the Oregonian industry, but I'm so glad because I'm a bit younger, so it makes fully sense. I visited America with my parents when I was 16, but on the East Coast, and I went for the first time on the West Coast in 2004. So this was my first IPNC, and then I came regularly each year as a winemaker pouring the wines. And in 2007, I meet with Bob Morris, who is an incredible man, and we really had a wonderful wine experience together because he invited me to visit his estate thanks to a mutual friend who was a geologist, Alan Boussaka. And it was really the first time I went into the gorge because I was a bit familiar with the Willamette Valley. I really, really love. I got a lot of connections there, a lot of friends, and I really enjoy their wine so far. But when I went at this place, it was really amazing to me. You got this wonderful deck with the American flag and Mount Hood behind, and the trees and the orchards below, and the vines all around the property. This is just a postcard. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. And I will always remember that because this time I was traveling with my mother. She passed away since this time in 2016, but I still remember her eyes when she saw the place. She was like me. We were shocked about the beauty of the place. And in addition, we tasted the wines, and it was there with wonderful food. And we had such a, I can't tell really, but it was something really matching the ambience, the atmosphere, the friendship of Bob. And we also brewed some wines and he tried it. And by the end of the lunch, he told me, oh, your wines were so beautiful. I really want to do a project with you. And I was like, wow, he's probably joking. And we see each other again at the IPNC weekend. And he again tells me, I'm serious. So I was like, okay, just send me an email and we're going to talk together about that. And when I came back in France, I got email. And this same year, we started together. So 2007 was my first year working for Bob in the Gorge. And it was absolutely exciting for me. I was still very young at this time. I mean, I was 27. And I was just doing something all new with new equipment, new vines, new everything. And it was so far an amazing experience. And we really liked it together. So at this time, I was just there to do a single cuvée called Cuvée Alexandrine, which is a selection of the oldest block of Bob and from volcanic soil to do a kind of signature cuvée. And he really enjoys the results. And since 2011, I was in charge of the full wines, I would say, like a full-time consultant. And of course, I got some people there who are really so good to assist me and help and communicate. So this is how the things happens. and I'm still so enjoying it because it's now 2020 and I'm still there, and I'm still supporting them so much because it's not the highlight of the valley, but it really got a special potential to me, something very unique, talking about the terroir, the volcanic soil, the elevation, the climate. Everything is amazing. The vines are very well trained. So that's really a place to make Pinot Noir to me, really.
Do you think because the vines are well trained, because they're in Oregon and because of Oregon soil, that helps that training?
Well, the foreman in Nero, he's really amazing doing the job in the vines. He really trains the way I would do. And you don't know me, but I'm so exigent talking about wines. I'm there all year, and it's not just for fun. It's really, we do not have employees anyway, so we do everything. And this part can be missed to me because great wines born into the vineyards. And I got the same philosophy with Bob Murs. So it's really something which was essential to me. I just couldn't make wines with grapes I don't want to work with. So at Bob's place, I feel very well and just self-confident because I know the grape's going to be perfect. And this is consistent. It's not just 1 year it's good, another year it's kind of okay. No, it's always consistently top quality grapes. So this really matters to me. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alexine. Jean-Nicolas, when did you arrive in Oregon?
Our first vintage was 2014. I had visited Oregon like Dominique, not as often. My first IPNC was in 1991. But then my friend and partner, Jay Boberg, gave me a call in the middle of 2012 saying, well, you know, I have this project in Oregon, would you like to join? And so it took us a good 2 years to realize it. And no, it's what attracted me first to Oregon was the fact that, you know, I had a very solid partner to rely on, and I think all our stories are stories of bond, friendship, and certainly with the size of our operations in Burgundy, we could not do it without a really very solid base in the US and solid partners and people working in Oregon with us. But I was, you know, what really, of course, the climate, etc., the wines, of course, but what really was important for me was to find, compared to 91, that Oregon had grown into a very big, a sizable wine region. It had a critical mass, and I'm always quite interested and fascinated, I must say, by the history of wine regions and their evolution and their answers to changes in behavior, markets, and so on. And the fact that Oregon has a critical mass, that it's devoted to Pinot Noir, even though Chardonnay, thanks to Dominique, is really taking off, it was really important. You don't want to make Pinot Noir in the middle of nowhere. You want to have a community, you want to have an environment, at least this is important for me, an environment, and I would even say a cultural environment where people, when it becomes really the mark of the region and you know, the proud of the inhabitants. And I think this is really important. And I found that in Oregon, the fact that you have a lot of sometimes it's a little bit difficult to understand Oregon, just like Burgundy. because everybody is able to express himself, and you have a variety of styles, a variety of terroirs. And this is what I really discovered when we started to we started this project with Jay in 2012. I was really amazed and struck by the progress and the amount of research and the diversity going on in the region. And I had the image and my recollection in 91 was a very small region, very well organized already. IPNC was really extremely well buttoned up, but small, and people really experimenting, and barns and things like this. And it's still there to some extent, but it is also it has also become much more professional and very and very interesting to work in that region.
One of the things I went to IPNC in 2018 for the first time, and I see why it's voted as one of the best wine festivals that happens in the United States. The people who visit, I am still in contact with them. I've met so many people because the love of Oregon Pinot is just Pinot Noir. People really have a passion for it. And it's a very fun festival. I mean, wine, of course, is always fun when you're having a great time with great people. But the people that go to attend IPNC they really have been going 10, 12, 13 years to this festival. And I was able to really understand. And that was I did a deep dive into Oregon Pinot. And I always like to say Oregon Pinot and Burgundy, I can't go down that rabbit hole unless I run the lottery because it's so good. And to me, it's when I drink the wines, it's just the wine's a place. And that's one of the reasons I really, really enjoyed drinking, Oregon wines. So Thibaut, you're going to round us out, but we're not done yet. But tell us about your story of Oregon, and then we have a question, and I'm going to ask it to everyone once Thibaut finishes.
Well, so myself, I discovered Oregon actually thanks to Veronique and her team, because I worked a vintage at DDO in 2012. So I spent almost 6 months in Oregon. My father, who runs Maison Jadot, and Jacques Lardière, actually, who has been the winemaker at Jadot for 30 years, have been a few times to the IPNC before. And my father had in mind really to start a project outside of Burgundy, around Pinot Noir, obviously. What happened is that in 2013, actually a vineyard has been proposed to us, a vineyard in Oregon, in the Hamilton AVA, called the Resonance Vineyard. So he sent actually Jacques and myself to check the place, and we went there with Jacques, and really had a crush with the place. We visited the vineyard. We tasted wines made from this vineyard, because actually the first blocks were planted in 81, and several winemakers have been making wine from the Resonance Vineyard. And so we liked very much the place, had really a sense of place, which is something, as you know, very important for us in Burgundy. So we came back to France and said, my father, well, it's the right place to start a project in Oregon. So we bought the vineyard. It was in 2013. So we bought the vineyard during the summer with the crop. So 13 is our first vintage. And actually we decided to name the project Resonance. So Resonance is both the name of the winery, of the brand, and obviously the name of our iconic vineyard, the Resonance Vineyard. So it's still we still have many things to learn about the place, but we love it, and we have planted additional vineyards. We built a winery, a tasting room. Now Guillaume Large, who actually worked with us in Burgundy for several years, is based in Oregon and is the winemaker. So it's a great project. We love it.
Thank you. And I have a question from Bill Pastor. He says, do the legal regulations in Oregon allow more or less freedom regarding wine production compared to Burgundy?
Well, more freedom for now, but
More or less freedom regarding wine production as compared to Burgundy?
more freedom.
Okay, and can you expound on that? What do you mean? What do you all mean? What do you mean by more freedom? Because I know the attendees would love to hear the differences on that.
Well, in many ways, you know, the rules in France with the appellation d'origine protégée is quite strict, and that's true that in the US and in Oregon it is less strict. So, for example, the yield you are allowed to produce per acre is more restricted in Burgundy, and there are other examples, but I'm sure my friends will give other examples. But.
Yes, well, it's maybe I say something, and I think it really doesn't count for me, the rules, because obviously it's more relaxed in Oregon because we have these appellation contrôlée rules in France, which are in some ways a nightmare in terms of red tape and papers we need to fill and to do. But I don't feel necessarily a sense of freedom in Oregon, because you follow rules that you've decided yourself. So what Thibaut has said about yields, for example, yes, you don't have to especially to monitor yields, but everybody, and we all know that we have to have reasonable yields to make good wine. So this is something that we follow, and we set the lines, we set the guidelines ourselves. And in a way, this is more strict than the what is written and what is written in our guidelines, official guidelines in France. So yes, in terms of planting, it's easier, definitely. Otherwise, I don't think that would be a definite advantage versus Burgundy, and this is certainly not the reason why I've come to Oregon.
There's a few words to put it very simply, and I totally agree with what Jean-Nicolas just said, because if you want to make great wines, you have to set your rules. But there's one point very important, and it's not even Burgundy versus Oregon, it's Europe versus United States. So in wine production, it's very simple. In France, everything which is not allowed is fully forbidden. So everything which is not allowed is forbidden. In the US, everything which is not forbidden is allowed. So, you know, it opens a lot of doors for many things. Sometimes maybe too much, you know, some practices might be very strong to the wine and all that. So, but this is how it goes. If you talk legal, this is how it goes. Then, I mean, there are things which are anyway allowed in Europe, and we don't want to do because they are not our rules. We set higher rules than this. But if you look at the production, the global production, this is how it goes.
I think
Alexandre, you want to say yes?
There's another thing I would like to add about my own experience is what I like the most in Oregon is creativity, which is given to you, because we are not doing fancy things like high yields or whatever, but just it gives you another possibility to do something different from what you do in Burgundy, because you can create something very unique and different. Talking about the Blanc de Noir, for example, I'm doing some for Phelps Creek. And this is white still wine, which is made from Pinot Noir, but it's white. This is something I couldn't do in Burgundy for many reasons. And this is this part of freedom to create something different, what I really like. Okay. You can use your blocks, blend it together, make some trials, and if you are thinking it can be better, you can just, you have plenty of possibilities, so many opportunities. That's a
Do you
richness.
all find that you like that in the US there aren't the same designations, where in Burgundy everything is designated by vineyard site, whereas in the US you don't have those rules? Is that a plus or a minus? Do you like that, or does it make it challenging for you all, or just does it make it easier?
In Burgundy,
Oh,
everything is so regulated, you don't have over choice anyway. So that's a law, you need to follow with that. In Oregon, you really have the freedom to create something that you really want. And this part is really a plus to me, even if I really like the EOC for the reason that you know, because it's control and you know exactly what's going on. But the creativity is much more allowed in Oregon for sure.
Veronique, you were going to say something?
Well, I was going to say that I think because of Oregon, the rules are a little bit easier. We can spend more time in the vines and making the wine because we have less paperwork to do. And that is really, in France, you have to do that. So you have to spend a lot of time. So this is something I really like. I think it's also easier to make wine in Oregon. We have less problem with weather. We have less issues with disease. So that's something also easier. And I would say I prefer that we are not locked down in a system like in Burgundy, because everything is based on what you taste, and you want to produce, you know, your cuvées, and it's so you can take from that part of the vineyard, from this little block, from this year, where here we can't. So I really love that, because it's your decision, it's your taste that will guide you to create your cuvée, and that's what I really love in Oregon.
So we have two questions, three actually. First from Tom, he says, how do Oregon soils differ from Burgundy, and how do the differences affect the wine? Talking soils.
It's a good question for Veronique, I think.
No, it's a very good question, because Oregon really has very different soil. The one thing that we have somewhat common is the climate, but the soil are extremely different. We are here in Burgundy on our classic marl limestone soil, where Oregon is almost entirely on original volcanic soil and sedimentary soil. And that is a huge difference. And how does that translate into the wine? Well, first, the surprise for us was how beautiful and similar these wines could be to Burgundy, even though we never want to compare them. You can try to compare them just to see what is similar and what is different. And there are nuances, and actually quite a lot. But you still see through the grapes growing on these volcanic soil, the beauty of the Pinot, the salty, the elegance, the finesse, and the complexity. And for me, the volcanic soil speaks in the wine through usually lovely color, a touch of spiciness in the wines, and of course there's vintage variation, which is great. So yeah, the soil are not the same. The expression in the wine is a little bit different, but yet we can taste it Pinot Noir, and that's the beauty. And there's not many places in the world where you can achieve that. That's my view.
You said in your statement that you don't compare Burgundy and Oregon, but I think when a lot of people taste wines, they always want to compare, right? And how do you explain to people not to compare? Because it's very hard.
Yes, when I say we should not compare, we always do, and we always, when we taste the wine, we say, oh, could this be related to somewhere in Burgundy? Because it's a fun exercise to do, and sometimes say, oh yeah, it has a little bit of spiciness like Savigny-les-Beaunes or Vosne Romanée. But when I say we shouldn't compare, we won't imitate what Burgundy do, because Burgundy is very unique in its own way. But we can be inspired, and that's what I think we all are doing, inspired by the style of wine we like to produce. So it's a tricky line between not trying to duplicate what we do, and we can't, but still trying to produce what we think Pinot Noir should be like.
Okay. And we have a question from Marie and Javier. Do the winemakers think root stock or clonal selection is more impactful for the wines they make? Rootstock or clonal selection is more impactful for the wines they make?
It has both have a very strong impact anyway, but whether it's in Oregon or in Burgundy. Well, first of all, the rootstock sends a lot of information to the vine on top, like how early it grows. So, I know in Burgundy with the climate change, there's a switch to rootstock that will ripen later, for example. There are rootstocks that stand the drought or other things. So the rootstock has to fit the soil and feel good in the soil. And as it's volcanic soils in Oregon, we share some rootstocks, but others we use in Burgundy are not used in Oregon. Like the 3309 is used widely in Oregon and in Burgundy. And then they use 10114, which is not used or little used in Burgundy. But it's an adaptation to the soil, to the place. Fair amount of Riparia also in Oregon, which is used in some places where there's no calcium in Burgundy, for example. Then the selection, the type of grapes you're going to get. When you're in Burgundy, it's interesting because I think there's a so long history, and there are domains which have been over generations selecting their own Pinot Noir. That it's part of. I think this is part of a domain style. I mean, but we're not talking just like the normal clones, the 667, the 15, and the 777, and whatever. That's what has been massal selection reproduced. And there's always been selections from some growers which have been exceptional and kept like this. And so we also use clones now in Burgundy, of course. I think it's been a big renewal in Oregon when they finally get, and I think Adelsheim is responsible for it to get all the Dijon clones in Oregon. That was long ago, maybe 30 years ago or so, which it was hard to do at that time. It's something very specially he managed to do, and it has been because those clones are really good clones selected in Burgundy, which are really stylish of Pinot Noir. And they're widely used now in Oregon. I'm talking the 115, the 667, 777, which are used also in Burgundy. And I think compared to some of the old clones, which there's one interesting clone which is very much Oregon. It's the Pomar clone, which I kind of like because I think it's Oregon. It's kind of strong and flavorful, maybe not as elegant as the Dijon clone, but it's interesting also. And to me, it represents Oregon quite well. And there's there's a little bit of Venetsville also, which comes from Switzerland, which is another clone. And maybe in all your different places. I'm talking to the French winemakers, Belgian winemakers. There's other selections than this. I know we use at Lingua Franca, which also is a beautiful vineyard. We have a little bit of Calera, which it looks like Calera is a famous clone coming from California, George Jensen, which is remarkable in California, and it looks like it could be remarkable in Oregon, but in our vineyard it doesn't produce anything, so we don't see much of the result at the moment. It's interesting. Those clones they have to stick to the place also. So you may try some, and they may not work. and it's not because your place isn't good. It's just like an ambience, and you have to match the rootstock and the clone together, and make it work in the place. And the only way to do is try it and see what works well.
Okay. We have a couple of questions. The first is, what are you excited for the future of winemaking in both Burgundy and Oregon? I think a lot of people will love to hear what are you excited about?
It's a question for the young guys.
Is the young, okay, the younger generation, let's go. What are you excited about? Thibaut, I'm gonna call on you.
And I'm excited. Of course, in Burgundy, you know, we are very lucky to be in Burgundy. It's not because of me. It's not because of us. It has, you know, this generation of growers that have crafted this vineyard for such a long time. So it's a special place in the wine world, and I'm excited. There's of course. Climate, everybody is talking about climate change. It's happening, even if some people do not believe it. But we can tell you it's happening because we see it in our vineyard, in Burgundy, in Oregon, and elsewhere. So we'll have to adapt. But I'm excited. And in Oregon, it's a younger wine region, but you know, there's more and more people coming in Oregon. There's vineyards that are planted. The region is growing. So, and you have also this young generation of growers that are farming better. So, well, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Well, you mentioned climate, and there's a question about the fires. And so someone wanted to know, are any of your vineyards hurt by the fire this summer? And were you still able to process the harvest?
Well, at Resonance, we've been quite fortunate, if I may say, because most of our vineyards are in the Carlton-Avier, where actually we were not that close to the fires. So we have processed the fruit. Honestly, we do not know yet. We are still evaluating, if I may say. We give us a little more time. What is sure is that well, we will not make wine if we are not 100% sure of the quality. But we do not know yet, I have to say. Right? We have a small vineyard in the Dundee Hills that obviously have been more affected compared to our vineyards in Carlton, but we'll see.
Okay. And we have a question about the techniques. Do you all use the same techniques in Burgundy as you use in Oregon? Do you differ in your technique? I see you're shaking your head, Jean-Nicolas.
Yes, well, yeah, it's the same. The canvas is actually the same, and it works really well. And I've had a number of people, customers, and so on, saying, "Well, we really see the link between what you do in Burgundy and in Oregon." So I think it really works. Of course, the wines are different, and they do not react exactly the same. And I'm used to saying that the problem in Oregon is acidity, whereas the problem in Burgundy is ripeness. Although, of course, climate is changing, so we'll see whether that remains true. But yes, this I would say is the main difference. But I've seen that many of the things and many of the habits that I have here in Burgundy are still valid for Oregon, with a few twists. But it's really very similar, and I find it. For me, it works. You know, it works in Oregon too. And we have an associate winemaker, Tracy, and Tracy is working in Oregon, and most of the time I'm in Burgundy. I would not picture myself as a consultant. Maybe I'm a little bit more than a consultant, but that to say that, we have a great working relationship with Tracy, but I have to convince her. So it's not because I say, well, this is what we do in Burgundy and you should do the same. That worked for a short period at the beginning. Not anymore. She needs to be convinced. And so far it works.
Okay. So this question, I think this is just a great question and is for everyone to answer. Pamela, since you've been in Oregon, what has been your most memorable or favorite vintage? So we're going to start with you, Dominique. Your most memorable or favorite, you're on mute. Dominique, you're on mute.
I am, yes. Yeah, I would say, sorry, for me, it's my first vintage because it was something to do that jump, first of all, and to get to the place and to get to decide on things, which is slightly harder when you know a little bit about the region, but not everything. So it was very intense. And it's also, and I will always remember that time, because there was a bit of Chardonnay also on the property, and the vineyard manager wanted to pick much later than I wanted to pick, which was at that time something that was happening a lot in Oregon, and like getting slightly overripe and all that. Then 2007 was a kind of cool and late picking harvest. But I wanted to pick anyway earlier than they thought, and they cared a lot about the Pinot Noir, and so I turned to the winemakers and said, they don't check out on the Chardonnay, let's pick the Chardonnay, which everybody said, you're crazy. The juice was like 22 bricks max, and when they were saying, it has to be 23 or more, and maybe it was 21 and a half at that time. And so we picked that, get it into barrel, and we've made an amazing Chardonnay the first year because it had the right balance. So for me, it was also good because the feeling I had about those decisions turned out to produce good wines. So it's a thing that I've used afterward, and I think with a good success in a way, because I feel you need a good ripeness in the wine, but you don't want to be overripe, and it's very important. It's important to keep that balance of fresh fruit and intensity, and then for the Pinot Noir you have to have the skins right to get fine tannins, and the balance with acidity, which I think is also a benchmark of what we are looking for in Burgundy. Well, the results, they differ, but it's the same idea. We end up having the same idea in a wine, the best idea of balance, and that sense of a place, trying to get to show you what comes out of that vineyard. So my first vintage, yes, 2007.
Alex Jing?
I have, sorry, exactly the same feeling that Dominique, because 2007 was my first vintage as well. And I still remember that the team was really pushing to harvest later. And I was like, no, we need to pick now. And so they were not very confident because it was the first time I was working for them. And they were a bit nervous about that because the bricks is something they really look at it. And I was more watching about the general balance, like the maturity, of course, of the grapes, sugar with acidity and pH, but also the general balance. And I really trust in my palate. I used to taste the grapes And I see with the analysis if I'm pretty right, and most of the time it's pretty right. And so I was like, we need to pick. And so we did, and this was certainly one of my first really good choice. I'm not pretending I'm the best, not at all, but it was really the grapes I wanted to craft this special cuvée for Phelps Creek. And 2007 is just a wonderful association of mature fruit, but not overripened, with fresh berries, a lot of spiciness. And the unique terroir of Phelps Creek really displays naturally a lot of earthiness coming from the soil. So it's really intense, but still very classic in style. And this is what I really like. So 2007, so far, one of my greatest experiences.
Perfect, 2007. Thibaut, for you?
Well, actually, I'm sorry, it's the same. It's the first, vintage, 2013. You know, it's on the paper, it's maybe not the best vintage we have had in Oregon in the last decade. But you know, we bought the vineyard during the summer. We did not have any winery to make the wine, so it was made in a barn. It was and at the end, well, I'm not objective at all, obviously, but it's we made a nice wine. So it's 2013.
Okay, Jean-Nicolas?
Yes, well, I agree that the first vintage is always something that we always remember, and 14 for us was also quite telling. It was a great vintage, but very ripe, very hot, very warm. So we had I had all these the same reaction and problems as you know, in terms of picking late, early compared to late, and that was certainly a great vintage to exercise that opinion. But actually, I think 18 is my favorite vintage. It's just a coincidence that this is the latest vintage for sale. It's just a coincidence, really, believe me. But no, I think that 18 is a vintage which is phenomenal in Oregon, in the sense that it's very ripe, yet has a lot of structure, lots of backbone, is even a little severe, a little upright, and it combines this ripeness with structure, acidity, and I think that we have exceptional wines in 18, and this is really a great vintage in Oregon, and I hope the consumers will like it, because I really think it's excellent.
Thank you. And Veronique, you're going to close us out of you know, our talk today. So, favorite, most memorable vintage?
Maybe the most memorable, because favorite, it's very difficult to answer the question. I've had so many. I would say every vintage has been an amazing journey. So there's a lot of that I love. But maybe the most memorable one is beside 88, which was the first, probably 1992, because that's the year I got married in June, and then in August, because 92 is, I think, on record for me at least, the earliest vintage we had. We started to pick in August in 92. And so I had to leave my husband, and I went to Oregon and made the wine. And then in December happened that my first child was born, Lorraine, and she was very premature, because I think I had done maybe a little bit too much punch down and pump over and work, because I did not know I was pregnant. So that same year, I got from being totally single to being married with a child and having made wine. And the vintage of 1992, we kept some because it's her birth year, and it's still drinking so well. So anyway, it's a vintage that has a lot for me.
So we just got one last question snuck in. So how long should you age the wines? Someone asking about ageability of your wines.
Oregon?
Oregon, yes. Oh, I'm assuming they're asking about Oregon, yes.
Okay. Myself, and as far as I can go, but the 2007, I have them in my cellar. The Chardonnays are still amazing, which is really good news because it's not where you expect Chardonnay from Oregon to go, and still showing really nicely. And the reds, of course, they're in good shape. They're beautiful to drink now, but it gives you an idea of how well it can age. I remember tasting 25 years old wines from DDO, and there was that 92 I've had. I remember that was amazing, and it doesn't mean you have to wait that long. And I think there's the Pinot Noir in Oregon have a generosity of fruit. They're slightly more intense in fruit than what we get in Oregon, which is more subtle. So I think a kind of an early drinking doesn't damage the wine too, but they will age beautiful for sure, 10 to 20 years with no problem. And the good news is that there's very few bad vintages in Oregon because the conditions in summer are always brilliant with sunny and nice. So it's just a few vintages when you harvest late and you hit the rains, because there's a time, that's what all the winemakers in Oregon know, that it's beautiful weather and all of a sudden you get the rain coming, and when it starts raining it doesn't stop. So either you've finished harvesting and you're fine, or you haven't started and you're in deep shit, but that doesn't happen very often.
What I would say to everyone is buy 2 bottles of their wines, drink one now, save one for a few years. And I believe that you shouldn't hold on to wine so long. Wine is to be actually enjoyed and to be celebrated. And if 2020 taught us anything, I think it's to drink the good wine now. Because to drink the good wine now, that's my 2020 motto.
Julia, 2 bottles is not enough.
Well, okay, 2 bottles is not enough. According to Dominique, you buy as many, yes, buy 6 bottles and then you drink 3 now and then 3 more later. That was Alex. That's what we're going to do.
Get back to buy a pack of 12, because what happens if you get to love the wine? It's not going to age, so you need enough in your cellar.
You need enough in your cellar. And on that, we're going to conclude today's Pinot Noir French winemakers in Oregon. I think you guys are so much fun. I enjoy talking to you guys all the time. And so John is going to actually come back on and close us out. And for all the attendees, remember December 6th is the next one with Talking Grower Champagne with Dorothy Gator and Terry Thies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Salut les bons.
Salut tout le monde.
Salut.
Bye bye.
On s'en va, on quitte.
So I see the IPNC. Are you guys going to close us out?
Yep, that works. That works perfectly here. So yeah, a special thanks to the moderator, Julia Coney, of course, for moderating a exciting conversation. Thank you for all your time. I know that it's the evening there in France. And as you mentioned before, the next episode is December 6th. It's with Dorothy Gator and Terry Thies, and they'll be exploring small production champagne houses. So yeah, we look forward to everyone joining us next month, and thank you for your time. See you guys next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great time. Enjoy yourself.
Bye.
You made it easy, Julia. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed, these are fun. I enjoyed, look, I get to drink great wine in the middle of a Sunday afternoon. And I'm just waiting to get back to Oregon. That is, oh man, I had such a great time. I bought a lot of you guys wines when I'm there, because even as a wine journalist, I believe in just supporting the wineries. And I was blown away by the quality of the wines in Oregon that I can't stop talking about it that much. And also the camaraderie of the wineries, and it's very, and I make this statement all the time, Oregon is very un-Napa. It's a different feeling among the winemakers that I talk to. It's just something very different. It feels like home to me, which I love. Instead of a place to just go taste wine, it feels very familiar. And I like that about Oregon.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Bye.
Hopefully we meet in Oregon.
Bye.
Yes.
You in Oregon, Julia?
See you in Oregon. Or you know what? No, see you in France.
Oh, yes, see you
in France. See you in France. That's where I want to go. I want French butter. I just want saucy song. And it just, yeah, I just want to leave America. That's right now. I just want to leave America. So, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, everybody.